Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast, where you'll learn how to host a high converting virtual summit that leads to your biggest signature offer launch yet. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and we are flipping the script a little in today's episode and covering a topic that's going to be relevant to those of you who speak at summits. I'm guessing most of you listening do both, a little both. You host, you speak, but it's going to be great for those of you who want to get more leverage from the speaking you do. I think this will also be a great episode for you to actually consider sharing with your speakers in the information you give them on the speaker information page. Pass this along to them, along with episode 22 that we did with Jessica Rasdell, where she covered creating transformative summit presentations. Like, all serves as such great resources for them. But today we're talking about what it can look like for your bottom line when you go the extra mile to network, show up, and connect in the events you're a part of, rather than just submitting a presentation, hopefully sharing a time or two, and calling it good. And I am totally guilty of this, by the way, so I'm not lecturing you. I'm lecturing both of us as we go. But I was so excited for this topic because I always have, in all my summits, I'll have one or two speakers who just blow me away. And a lot of the times it's the people who I least expect. These are the speakers who not only join the community, but just like go to town with commenting and engaging the attendees. They're the speakers who prompt conversation. They show up to live events and get everyone else pumped up. They support the heck out of the attendees who have questions or like comment on their presentation. And every single time, they are the speakers who get the most attention from the attendees, often in terms of like direct and immediate sales. And like I hinted at, I'm actually really terrible at this. So I'm excited to bring in a special guest who is an expert in this. She is a master connector and has turned it into a business when she founded the District Bliss community. And as an extrovert living in a work from home world, our guest has found ways to leverage her network and continue to expand her multiple businesses by facilitating connections between entrepreneurs at networking events and workshops, developing collaborations, and providing business building support. She has converted dozens of clients through networking as a summit speaker and even some as an attendee. She was, again, like one of my very favorite speakers at our most recent summit for this exact reason. It really stands out. So without further ado, let's just dive in and talk with Sara Alepin of District Bliss. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me, Krista.
It's going to be so good. I'm excited to talk about this. I feel like actually engaging as a speaker and taking full advantage of the opportunity makes it less of an opportunity. You just don't get as much out of it, but we're just so used to, at least for me, I'm so used to be like, oh yeah, here's my presentation. Good luck at the summit. Peace. Like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on so much. And it's silly because like those of you who go the extra mile and do the interaction, you stand so far above and beyond everyone else. So I'm really excited to dive into that with you today. Before we do that, will you tell us a little bit more about you and your business?
I sure can. So I'm Sara Alepin. I'm the founder and CEO of District Bliss, and we're a community of introverted and extroverted business owners who are sick of that stodgy style of networking and who really want to break free from that so we can build our businesses with ease. We do that through workshops and educational content, networking socials that are high ROI and approachable so they aren't anxiety provoking, all kinds of resources, collaboration support, and so much more.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Did you just I want to know where all this came from. Did you just naturally go all in with like connecting at events you were a part of and things like that just because like that's who you are? Or how did this become your thing?
That's a great question. I hated networking a lot. And my origin story is I was a photographer and I would go to networking events and I would find that people would interact with me from scarcity mindset, which means like I would say, hi, I'm Sara, I'm a photographer, who like, nice to meet you. And they would say, oh, I'm a photographer, I don't need to meet you. And they would ice me out of the circle.
Whoa.
I know it was incredibly discouraging. And I was looking for, I think part of client care is when you aren't the right fit to be able to refer out to the person that is. So I was looking for people, and you can't take every photography experience like you're booked sometimes. So I was looking for people to refer to that were really like solid photographers that were in line with my personality and style to send them work. So the whole thing was very discouraging. And then I realized that there was a better way to actually connect. So that's why I started District Bliss. And I think that kind of drove my interactions with as a summit speaker, knowing that the power of connection is really people buy from people. They want to know who you are. And a presentation is great. Yes, you can certainly showcase your personality and showcase your business and your expertise and share knowledge, but you're missing that huge opportunity of connection and deepening the relationship so you stay top of mind if you don't just like lean into the actual connection. And when I started speaking at summits, I was a little afraid to do this because I thought it would be kind of stepping on the summit host
Yeah.
toes. And I also have a big personality. I'm a very much an extrovert. I know, you know.
Yeah, I do. I love it.
And so I never want to be the person that is the loudest voice in the space, but I also really want to be encouraging and I want to foster those connections so that I can build out my referral network, build out my collaborations, find more speaking opportunities, reach a wider audience, and help others do the same and meet their goals. So that's kind of how I started. I know part of it is my personality, but I realized I had more success when I leaned in and showed up, and I got asked back to speak at the summits again and again.
Yes, I can think of when I used to host a summit for designers. There was a speaker I was a little nervous to have. It wasn't my usual like demographic of speaker. I know they didn't have like a big audience, but they asked me and they seemed really nice. So I kind of just said yes because I didn't want to say no. But they were that person. They were the speaker who showed up in the group, who started conversation, who did all the things that we're going to talk about. And you can bet they were first on my list to come back next year. I don't even care how many leads you bring in. You added so much to the experience. And then I knew that they got business from it too. And that was just fun. You know, it's so fun to be able to get your speakers like immediate results. So I have felt that way too, though. Like, oh, I hope the host doesn't mind that I'm like taking over all their posts here. But, you know, I don't know. It just makes it fun. I love that. Tell us a little bit more, though, about the results you've seen from that and maybe how others can expect to kind of maximize their ROI from speaking at summits.
I actually pulled metrics for this because I was thinking about it. And I had one of my, and nothing against the summit hosts, many things could have gone into this, including that I could have given the wrong lead gen, all the things. So for the demographic. So no shade on this summit host. I'm also not going to tell you who it was, but I only got 9 leads from this speaking opportunity, which is very low. And I had offered to host a networking social during the actual summit itself, because sometimes I'll do that. That gives me the opportunity to really showcase District Bliss and like why our networking socials are like really great and approachable. And that also is a great opportunity for the summit host to be able to participate and not use all their brain space running it. So win-win all around. But I only got 9 leads. There were 15 speakers, and I converted one client immediately from the event because that person was a speaker, and I met them during the networking social that I hosted, and she was like, I just need to know more about you, and immediately got on my calendar and signed up right away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are such small numbers. I mean, the total, I don't know how much overlap there was, but like we're talking max 21 people. Wait, 26 people, not great at math, great at networking. So max 26 people, and I converted a client out of it.
Yeah.
You know, the numbers, you make your own numbers, and I think you can really increase your success rate by showing up and participating and engaging, not just with the attendees, but also with the speakers. And it isn't just about getting clients. That shouldn't be your only metric here, because it can also be collaborations, future speaking opportunities. It could be participating in a bundle together if you're interested in bundles to build your list. It could be that you want them as a summit speaker in the future because they did a great job and they showed up for everything else. So now you found yourself a new speaker who is going to be an easy yes, which who doesn't love that as a summit?
Yes. Yes, please.
Like, cold pitching again.
Although I feel like you'd thrive.
Thanks. I have to really pull back my exclamation points in my emails.
Let's not scare them away.
My enthusiasm is...
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it.
And those people that you build the connections with, and I should pause to define connections here in a second, but they're the people who hang around longer, and they're the people who talk about you when you're not in the room. They're the people who want you to succeed and who want to be in your orbit. So taking the time to build those connections is really going to increase your ROI. And let me pause here to define what connecting is. It is not going in and telling people how they can hire you. It is not vanishing business cards, and it is not ghosting people once they reach out to you, and it is not shallow handshakes. It is asking questions. It is finding out what their goals are and thinking about how you two can support one another and how you could potentially work together in order to serve both of your goals. So it's thinking about the other person. It's not just like the handing out of business cards and the business card grab. List build is great, but like that's kind of what list build is a little bit. Like this is actually building a relationship with people.
I love that. That does make such a big difference. I actually just saw this like on accident. I'm just kind of putting the pieces together as I'm listening to you. There was a summit I actually sponsored, was it last month, I think. And like I said, usually I am the speaker who I'll give you my stuff on time. I'll be the first one to send you my presentation because I don't want you to have to wait. I'll do the promotion I've agreed to. Like I'll check the boxes, but you're not going to see me hanging out in the community unless like someone tags me in my assistant's like, hey, you have this comment to go reply to. I'll go do that. But in the summit I sponsored, as a sponsor, I got like a bonus live session. And I almost said no. I was almost like, no, I'll pay for the package. I don't want that live session though. Because it's another thing. A lot of times engagement in first time summits in certain niches is not great. And this was kind of one of those. I was like, I don't want to go do it live for 2 people. But I went and I did it. Her engagement was amazing. Like one of the most highly engaged summits I've ever been to. And that got me pumped. And I delivered like my best live training of my life, I feel like. Like I was on it. The people were going nuts. They were so excited. And we had the chance to make these real connections. And because I got done early and I was feeding off their energy and responding to them. And we were making immediate $2,000 sales after this. It's like, what? That would not have happened if they would have just watched my 20-minute presentation and went along to the next one, you know, like these personal actual connections. Like, yeah, I guess you're right, Sarah.
It can feel a little bit overwhelming and it can feel like it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't have to. And it can feel just like making a friend. And and enthusiasm is contagious. So when you do have those speakers who are enthusiastic as a summit host, it makes the biggest difference in your engagement. And actually, it really makes a difference in your sales, I've seen. When you have like a really active, especially for something like Summit in a Box, where like there is a group element, but it's not like all group element, but when there's like enthusiasm behind it, then people are like, oh, I not only want to learn, but I also want to participate. So it like keeps the steam going after the summit in your group program, which I always loved about Summit in a Box because people are just really like, the community is very active and like super sweet and nice and thoughtful, but I digress.
Yay, thanks. I approve this message.
But it is worth the time, you know, it's worth the time to build relationships because they deliver consistently over time. And yeah, you get those higher ticket sales. You're not getting that $9 sale. You're getting like a $2,000 sale. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and it's worth us saying no to more, saying yes to the one per month or whatever, where you can actually go and get that kind of return. So it's silly. It's silly for us not to. But okay, let's move along to say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say no to some things. I'm going to say yes to things I have time for. So practically then, what's it going to look like for us to be networking and connecting with attendees during a summit?
Show up for every live event that you can. Even if you're not able to speak during that event, if you can interact in the chat or if you can interact on video, better if you can interact on video, of course, because people see your face, they see your reaction, even if that's not part of the recorded. And even if they aren't going to hear your voice at all, they'll notice that you're there, that you're present, that you're paying attention, and that you're invested, both the summit host, any other speakers, and attendees. Like I think I showed up to even like the part of your summit where you pitch.
Yeah.
Just because then I can also have my enthusiasm in the chat for you and be like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, I love Summit in a Box. I signed up in 2021, I think, January 2021 or something,
Yeah.
maybe 2020. It's been a long time. But anyway, it really that means a lot. I'm sure that meant a lot to
Oh
you.
my gosh. It stands out, right? Like number one on speaker list next time, Sara.
And my list might not be 20,000 people. It
Mm,
doesn't, but I can get you sales in that room too, just by being enthusiastic about speaking for a product that I truly use and that I think has a ton of value.
yeah, I love that. So showing up, you're in the community. I do find it really interesting, like going all the lives and stuff like that, because I'm like, oh, just a thing to go to. But it really, really does make such a difference to be the face that people are seeing consistently.
Mhm.
Do you do anything extra to connect with the speakers also?
Yes. So I usually will email the summit host and I'll be like, is there any chance we can do a speaker networking event prior
Ooh.
to the actual event? And most of them are like, I've never thought of that. And I'm always like, well, I'm happy to host it if you would like. Otherwise, I'm also happy to just show up and let you host it. So you can offer that. You don't have to be a person who's ever hosted a networking social or something to do that. But to offer to host something where people can meet and connect. And then that brings people's enthusiasm in going into the summit because you're doing this like 1 to 2 weeks out. You're fitting it in your very busy schedule right before you're hosting a summit. I realize that, which is always why it's kind of nice that I offer to host it myself for people. But having a space where you can connect with just the speakers, and sometimes it's nice because they'll get to say, I'm a little nervous.
Mm.
Or I didn't realize I was on such an amazing team of strong speakers, and I feel so honored to be here. And the overall experience you're going to get from that looks so good. So good.
Mhm.
I also try to go to their sessions if I can. And a lot of this I'm multitasking while I'm doing. I have to be honest.
Mhm.
I'm like doing some sort of, I don't know, bookkeeping or something where I'm using part of my brain, but I'm not writing copy. So I can pay attention to the words, or I'm like editing something that
Yeah.
is like graphics, those kinds of things. So I'm multitasking because I'm busy. And I'm not saying, you need to show up for everything, but I usually try to at least pop in and leave some sort of comment in the chat box that is encouraging to that speaker, because it's awful to go to the chat box as the speaker and dedicate that time and then have nobody ask any questions or give any feedback, and you don't know if anybody's there, and you aren't just sure if you're like speaking to the void. And it just really makes a true difference to show up and be like, you're doing a great job. And even if that's all I do and then I leave, it's still something. And that really keeps me top of mind for the speakers and the
Yes.
summit host.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. And honestly, I stopped doing I mean, my model is pre-recorded and I've stopped recommending that my students use chat boxes for that exact reason, because these days there's just a lot of dead chats and it is so sad. So I love that you're the one that just comes in for the save. That's funny.
It means so
It
much.
does. It does. Okay, and you also said, I don't know, somewhere maybe in our intake stuff here, but you I've heard before that you've also done this as an attendee. And
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that. I feel like that is where it could be a little bit more difficult to navigate letting people know who you are and what you do without it feeling like you're, kind of trying to slide under the radar and do something slimy.
The strategy is slightly different because you don't know, the host doesn't know you at all. Like if
Mhm.
I'm a speaker, the host at least knows that my intentions are good and that I'm not like a snake oil salesman who's just coming in to try to steal all the leads. And that feels really bad when that is the case. So please don't do that. But and honestly, at this point in business, it's very rare that I'm going to sign up for a summit, because especially if it's a pitch fest summit, like I don't pitch when I speak because
Mhm.
I'm going to get
Oh.
you in another way. It's very much where I'm going to pull you onto my email list, and then I'm going to give you a surprise and delight welcome sequence that is going to get you really excited to come to a networking social. And then we're going to get on a call for my marketing, behind the scenes on my marketing. That's how I'm getting people in typically.
I just wrote a note to sign up for your email list. I'm not on anyone's email list, but I want to be on yours now.
You get to see all my surprise and delights.
Yes.
It's a lot of like gifts and like little trainings that are like 10 seconds, but it makes a big difference on
So
connecting
good.
with people. And but so what I usually do when so yes, it's hard to get me to sign up for a summit now because I don't want to be pitched at, and it isn't the way that I buy. And I would really mostly be going to make connections. However, there are other opportunities like conferences that are paid that I will go to, and I will use this practice there. So just for you all reference wise, if you are not a person who attends summits, this is still applicable to the other things you attend because at some point in business, like we do move beyond that. Anyway, so what I do is I will ask questions that are thoughtful and actually like that I have. I don't invent a question. And if there's no question, I will try really hard to come up with a thoughtful question because that's also awful as a host to be waiting and have all that dead space for questions and then have no questions. It's like the dead chat box, right? Like it feels bad. I will usually think about like, okay, where is my barrier here? What could I get some more clarity surrounding? And even if I kind of know the answer, I'll still ask the question if I think it's best for the audience to hear the question. So it's a little bit about being brave there. And that's, if I'm asking something live or if I'm asking something in the chat, I may say, could you clarify if you need to have a certain number of attendee or email people on your list in order to speak as a summit, which like I may know, but it also is good to know what their metric is. So, and it's helpful for the audience. So, let's say like you're doing a summit about summits, which you've done.
Yes. Gonna do it again too.
So that would be something I would ask, typically when you're looking for a summit speaker, do you have an email list requirement? And if so, what does that look like for you? And what do you see as the average? Might be a question that I would ask because that's going to vary by summit host.
Yeah.
And it's a good question no matter what. So I'm always trying to think of something that's going to be a thought-provoking conversation and ask that question. And by having thought-provoking conversations, then attendees will come to me later and say, I'm so glad you asked that question. I was afraid to ask.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens all the time. And they'll be like, or it sparked a question I didn't even know I had. I hear that a lot too.
Oh my goodness. See, I never ask questions, so I've never heard that happen before. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a very different approach.
It's very different because you're not trying to steal the spot. And this is not, to be clear, there are those people who will literally get up to the microphone every single time. They will do their elevator pitch every single time, and they will make it kind of about them. This is not making it about you. Mm-hmm. This is making it about everyone else around you and you just being the vessel that carries the question to the stage.
That's cool. So much good stuff to think about and do. And I hope this is like encouraging and exciting to everyone. Like just a few simple tweaks. You can get so much more out of the speaking you're already doing. Sara, thank you so much for sharing all of this. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do and get on your email list? What do you got for us?
My email list will be a pop-up when you go to my website, which is districtbliss.com. And you can find me over on Instagram. If you're going to connect with me on social media, that's where you should get me because I don't go on the other platforms as often and you might get some dead space between the interactions. But that's at District Bliss Events on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sara. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. For show notes and resources and links, go ahead to the link in the episode description wherever you're listening. And now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your high converting virtual summit.